That, of course, is the Tower of London. This, of course, is Richard Barnbrook, the British National Party's GLA member. Once again, with our video diary, Richard, I'd like to ask you about one or two events that have been happening. First off, Red, White and Blue, you were there. What did you think of it?
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Weather was fine pretty much all the way through. We had more space to actually play within, for families to run free, rather than the 2 fields. We had 4. We had a spectacular firework display at the end, and I think the children this time, that's what I like to emphasise more. There were more family units, or people, family groups there this time than the last 6 or 7 I've been to. So it really was a family affair, and children, as I mentioned before, were able to play freely without the fear of being attacked or absconded.
What about the attempt by elements aligned to the Labour Party to sabotage the event? I mean, what did you make of that?
So this is nonsense, absolute nonsense. You had another event there about 2 or 3 weeks ago, bikers in their thousands, drinking and making a lot of noise. What sort of noise, I don't know, I wasn't there. Being given a licence for music and also for alcohol, and yet we had that cancelled. That was the start of this mayhem. Then we have people like Bob Crow coming up there, and the unions and the communists all marching down. And in the end, they even turned on themselves because they couldn't decide who was going to lead their march. Now, for Mr. Crow, he's obviously innocent of all the occurring, maybe, but as a peaceful person, and in a question time with Dimbleby, said, I'd like to see peace and harmony and unity and tranquility across the globe. And yet he's involved with, or guilty by association, of an absolute raucous of violence running through with the police being attacked. So where I agree with their democratic right to actually make comment, I think the approach they took was deplorable and absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a particularly wise move on behalf of Labour. I mean, they were being propped up by their friends in the local paper who we had a bit of a run-in with, and we eventually banned from the site. But overall, my impression as well, probably yours, we don't get intimidated out of going into these festivals. We're going to go, that's the end of it. They better accept that event is going to happen. And these things only bring us together, don't they? There was a tremendous sense of comradeship, wasn't there, on that field?
Yes, there were. I mean, there was 1 or 2 possible times during that pathetic activity outside where the police felt they may not be able to hold back the demonstrators, or should I say the aggressors. And people were there, our own people, not showing any aggression, but they were showing a comradeship in saying they do, the police cannot hold them back, and they do break through, they will never get anywhere near our children and our wives and girlfriends. And yes, they try to stop us from having these events, and the fact is, while a farmer and other farmers across this land want to have us there, we will go there and will not be stopped or even threatened by the opposition. And primarily, as you mentioned, it's Labour behind the whole of this.
Yeah, there was on the Sunday there was an important EGM, wasn't there, with 1 or 2 bits and pieces to be added to the Constitution. Generally, I would say 99.9% of people left a damn sight happier than they arrived in that tent. It was a really good EGM, wasn't it?
Yes, definitely. And one thing I gathered from this, even though it's a very sensitive subject, the 4-year programme of Leadership Challenge, and it was obviously voted against, is the fact that people said to me afterwards, I really enjoyed the participation. Because it wasn't like 1 or 2 speakers for and against. Anybody, I mean literally anybody, that had a membership card with them could come onto the stage and put their area of views forward. So those that didn't make comment, those that listened to it and got involved with it just by listening and show a vote, walked away saying, this is my party, this is real democracy at work. So yes, it was a brilliant evening and a brilliant debate that was held on this.
Yeah, I think the thing is, you and me had a differing point of view on that day, and eventually both of us came out. We didn't get everything that we wanted, but we reached a nice compromise, which everybody was really happy about, weren't they?
And that's how our party works. We recognise we have differences of opinion, but at the end of the day, we've got a job and a task to do, and we get on with it. It's not as if we're going to have grievances and sticking hatchets in each other once we're disagreeing on these sort of issues. We simply say, it went through the democratic process, it's been resolved, the better situation came forward, let's get on the task at hand.
Yeah, okay. Moving on swiftly, 2 pieces of involvement in the BBC programming. The first off, your experience in Billericay on Friday of BBC 4's Question Time.
Yeah, it was a shambles. I thought it'd be opened up to the floor. Even though it was an hour, and you had to go through a timetable of 10 questions, with only 8 actually being achieved, There could have been a right to reply, as in Question Time on television. And I think they recognised that I and 4 or 5 of my other colleagues were actually there with the intent to actually ask questions, very poignant questions. Not the fact of will the Olympic Games in London be of the size of the Olympic Games in Beijing, or the fact that one girl put forward, well, I'm Essex girl, and there's a cliche about Essex girls, you know, but I've moved on to that. Has the rest of the panel got an element of their past they've moved on from? And elements to transport this and transport that. There should have been key questions put forward, very sensitive ones. Work on the aspect of immigration, not immigration per se, simply on the fact of who's coming in and not coming in, but the impact on the resources and sustainable growth of London and the neighbouring areas such as Essex, and the knife crime going through London, and the actual fabric of the democratic problem of certain parts of the community now being kept out of their own daily existence. And this may sound a bit sort of fumble, but it's the element of how can certain parts of the community now afford these spiralling prices in fuel, in transport, in a loaf of bread, cereals for their children. And the most vulnerable people seem to be kept out of this whole programme of democratic growth. And these sort of questions weren't put forward. It was a shambles. And the most important thing, I think, that was a letdown was the fact of no right to apply. The question was put forward, answered by 3 or 4 academics who had their head in the skies, and then end the debate.
I think I was particularly upset that they never took any of our questions, and also there you are as a chap with 100,000 London votes under your belt. You have to sit in the audience while somebody like Bob Crow is on the panel. A bit sick, really, isn't it?
Yes, without a doubt. And the comments that came out, I mean, I will give Bob Crow one due. Only one good due on this. When it came to the element of paedophilia and the attack on young children, this is going back to the Gary Glitter story coming back into Britain, he actually said, string them up and the death penalty. So for that, Bob, I give you a slap on the back, mate. But the rest of the panel there, and even Bob did a U-turn. Well, yes, well, once they've done their crime, they should be let free and not harassed, and we don't want Sarah's law, and human rights for these people in prison, human rights when they're back in the streets. Not one person there had the balls or the guts, and excuse me for that language, to say, how about asking Sarah Payne, oh, you can't, she's dead, about her human rights, when a paedophile convicted was let loose earlier than his time, reoffended, and this time murdered poor Sarah Payne. What happened to her human rights? So again, this panel was a liberal, wishy-washy. Even the Conservative guy, whose name I can't remember, was, well, we're not quite sure really, can we do this, can't we do that? The British National Party, and I put it quite clearly to you, on the case of paedophilia, Sarah's law was implemented the day we get into government, and the next day, paedophiles caught reoffending and child molesters would have their bits removed by chemical castration, and those that kill innocent young people or kill people premeditated would face the death penalty. That is the strength of this party, and that is what the British people want, and that's what Londoners want, a safe working community.
No messing about with that, Richard. Straight into my final question, bringing us right up to date. We've just been looking at the BBC Panorama programme on the concept of Britishness last night. Just very briefly, what did you make of it?
I thought it was a wishy-washy breakdown of the whole idea of being Britain with 4 nations inside there under the Union of Great Britain, England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. The whole idea of a British Day washes out the concept of what it means to be Britain. We have British Day, or should have a British Day, every single day. We should have an English Day every single day. You breathe and live the nationality and the identity of your country. Not having one day with a piece of paper saying you're British, a passport, it's nonsense. And the aspect of what does it mean to be British? A British person is called British because of the 4 countries they come from. Let's talk about England. English people are English, not because the rock is called England, because the heart, the mind and the soul of those people think English every day of their life. It's the compassion, it is the handshake, it is the belief in a sense of fair play and democracy. Remember, if you want to know what it means to be British, Britain gave to the world democracy as we know it today. That is what it means to be British. The values that all that stands together. It's law, it's education, it's religion. the fact that we can encompass identities of difference and allow the freedom of speech to go on every single day. These are just fractions of what makes a British person British. That documentary whitewashed and skirted around the whole idea of what it means to be British or participating within the British concept and values.